claim that I'm responding to is that the active use of social media has a negative effect on members. The secondary claims are that social media makes socializing competitive, it is distracting when used actively, and because of social media, communication has been cheapened. My response to the first claim, that social media makes socializing competitive, in reality it actually encourages community togetherness. According to ProCon, 70% of adult social network users actually use the site to connect with friends and family. 52% of teens report that it's helped their relationships with their friends, and 88% report that it helps them stay in touch with friends that they can't actually communicate with regularly. And also that because of social media, you're more likely to vote. During the 2010 elections, Facebook users that visit the site more than once a day, 50% of them were more likely to go to a rally meeting and were more likely to vote, and 43% actually went out and voted. And during the 2012 presidential election, 22% of the voters posted on Facebook what they voted, and because of that, 30% Facebook users were actually encouraged to go out and vote because they weren't going to. So I believe that social media is not really competitive, it actually encourages you to go out and be involved in your community more. The second claim that it's distracting when used actively, it's actually beneficial to so many because when you use it, well, he said that we use it in class all the time. And in reality, there's a lot of classes that give you open note text, and they also give you open Google text. So when you have the internet to use, you kind of have to be actively using social media and everything. And your job may involve the use of internet, like if you work for Cha-Cha or for Google, for example. And he also had said that he did research and that 13 out of 13 students that were in a study hall went out and actually used their phones during that time. But the reality of that research is that he doesn't know if they're using it to go on Google and look up help for their homework or anything. So social media can actually be beneficial for your schoolwork, even if it is a cell phone. He said that because of social media, communication has become cheapened and that face-to-face interaction is gone. But communication has actually become so advanced where we don't actually have to be there to communicate with people. According to Skype, there's over 280 million active users of Skype each month, and because of that, we can now talk to our family members that we don't get to see maybe once a year, and we can communicate with family and friends that are in the military and everything. And because of that social networking site, we're actually able to bond with these people that we couldn't talk to before. And communication hasn't actually become cheapened, it's actually been advanced where we can communicate. Another thing that was drawn to my attention because of this was that now because of social media, we are able to actually Facebook someone or send them a text or anything and let them know that we're thinking about them without having to knock on their door and bug them or hope that they're home. And it takes 15 seconds out of our day to actually just talk to them. And it brightens up their entire day. It can turn the entire day around because of the social media and the advancement in all of our technologies that we have going on right now. So I believe that social media actually benefits our society greatly and that it doesn't have that great of a horrible effect on members. Yeah.
All right, Mariah, organizationally everything is pretty clear. I think that on each of the points you're basically just arguing counterclaims. There's no discussion of what the advocates' information was on this idea about whether or not social media creates competitiveness. You don't discuss their reasoning on those issues, so there's no refutation. You just have the rebuttal arguments arguing contrary positions, and that there is a benefit to social media. I think you've got good information on that. That social media increases voting. I think that's an interesting point too. But do either of those points deny the competitive nature of social media? I'm not sure they do. And I don't remember the advocate's exact claim, but if we were in a debate and the advocate was responding here, they might very well concede the 2 points that you've presented here in response to this and argue that they don't directly address that issue. I'm not sure whether or not they do, but because there's not a discussion of what the advocate's argument here is, you're kind of exposed that way. The same thing is sort of true on the second point, although there's a little bit more argument about the advocate's evidence because you talk about his example of the people who use the cell phone in the study hall situation, but you have an interesting hypothetical that they might well in fact have been using the phone for the purpose of getting assistance on the homework. That's pretty speculative, but it's a reasonable press to be making on that point because let's face it, the advocate made the opposite assumption, and it appears that it's also an assumption. So I think one of the things that you could argue is that at best this is a wash because we don't know what was actually going here. His observation doesn't automatically mean that we can reach the conclusion that the advocate was talking about. And then on the third point about face-to-face communication skills, I think we're back to the same thing that we had on the first point, is that you've got a very good rebuttal argument, but you don't really have much of a refutation of the advocate's actual claims. Whether or not there's a change in the way people interact with each other when they do interact face-to-face as a consequence of being online or using these social media, we don't know. I think what you could argue is that because Skype works a particular way, it's likely to allow us to use those face-to-face interactions. So we're not in the other person's presence, but that person can hear our voice, they can hear the tone of our voice, they can see the expression on their face. We would be able to use a variety of body movements and gestures depending upon how the Skype is set up to be able to communicate. So why would there be a change in the way that people develop communication skills? And then you can put the onus on the advocate to suggest that their evidence might not be sufficient to match up with this. I think, like I said, it's a good counterclaim here, but you're doing this a lot at the expense of maybe spending some time talking about the advocate's evidence and reasoning too. And while you might be able to get away with it in some cases, I'm not sure that it always works. In a couple of these spots, for instance, the points might not be mutually exclusive. All right, thank you.